Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's August the 9th, Saturday. I'm Terry. This is Esther. And this is Feed My Sheep, Earthquake Reports, and more. Okay, I need a cookie. Take it away, Terry.
And it's the 9th of August, and today we're doing a very unusual program, blending science or showing you where science matches up with the Bible. And so this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, but it's also for preparation. So for those who are of different faiths, everybody has an end time type of thingy, and we're just seeing correlations.
Yeah. And so we want you to know what to prepare for, because what the agencies are telling you and what's going to happen are two quite different things.
Absolutely.
And we need to address that. And that means we need to learn from Kamchatka and learn from the Bible and see how they match up and why.
So let's just give the four
verses
yep. Here with the prophecy. So from Matthew, when you think about volcanic ash, right?
Yep.
And covering parts of the world, like right now, the northern hemisphere is really under threat, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, Matthew 24 and 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will shake. Joel 2 and 31, the sun will be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord. Isaiah 13 and 10, for the stars of heaven and their constellations will not give their light. The rising sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. Finally, Revelation 6 and 12. And I saw when he opened the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun was blackened like sackcloth of hair, and the whole moon became like blood. Now, correlate that today with science.
Yep.
And what happens with volcanoes, and why you need to prepare, which is what we're going to address that first before we get into the seismograms and the technical stuff.
Yep.
So we want you to hear and listen to everything. And one of the things right off the bat is when Terry shows you all these areas, look at your areas, look at your volcanoes in your backyard, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And we've been telling everybody for 6 years to prepare, to have your bug out bag, of course, or your get home bag, to know where you're going to go if you're going to leave the area. And we'll talk about that because that's changed a lot, and especially since Kamchatka.
And we've been telling you for 6 years that the volcanoes are going to be a major eruption part of the earthquake. It's not just the Great Cascadia earthquake. It's a whole bunch of eruptions as well, all up and down the west side of North America.
Yeah, we just didn't know how far up and down.
And now Kamchatka has given us an example that we can learn from. Scientific.
So, not just bug out bags, but being prepared at home.
Yeah.
Too many people have gone to different YouTube channels and gone, oh my gosh, we're scared, we better prepare. And they'll go frantically, and then the adrenaline, the adrenaline rush, which people are addicted to, wears off, and they forget, and they don't do it. And we've been saying, keep going, keep going, keep going. No adrenaline, just keep preparing. Now, people don't think about this, but when those volcanoes go off with the earthquakes, there's not going to be any communication, so Terry's not going to be able to come on and say, hey, nope, there's an earthquake coming, there's a volcano coming, because one, you can't predict it no matter who says what. Two, he can't come on afterwards and say, well, there was no P wave, or this was the biggest thing we've ever seen, because there's not going to be any communication, so you're not going to be able to tune in to find out what's happened where, even though you're sitting right in the middle of it.
Yep.
Right? Emergency personnel. Up here, it's called emergency services. Emergency personnel are probably not going to bother with more rural communities, like 20,000 and under, and farming areas, because y'all are supposed to be able to take care of yourselves. So for an example, up here with us, I worked with emergency services. I volunteered, and everybody was given a notice to have 2 weeks of food in case of an emergency. The ferries would be down, nobody could get water or food or gasoline, so you needed to fend for yourself for 2 weeks. And then it became a month, and then it became 3 months and 4 months, And now we're betting, it's either going to stay at 4 months or maybe go to 6 months. We don't know. But you can see that they are telling you longer and longer time periods to be prepared to be self-sufficient. So the question is, have you prepared yourself to be self-sufficient for 6 months? And it's not only 6 months, because what happens after the volcanoes go off? Besides lava and ash, what happens to crops?
Yeah, you don't have feed for your animals. You don't have crop production. When you've got a little bit of ash, like after Mount St. Helens, it can actually enrich the soil. But when you've got 6 inches a foot of ash, then you're overwhelming what the soil can handle right off the bat. So you're going to have a year at least without crops.
Yeah. You might be able to get by with it in greenhouses as long as you can scoop
Get the ash off
off
of them without them collapsing.
Oh, and by the way, have you ever seen those videos where people are pulling big, huge amounts of snow, heavy snow off their roofs, and they've got this long pole and I guess you can call it a roof rake or something, and they pull down the snow? Well, the ash is going to be at least that heavy, and you can pull that down, but you're going to need a full face mask.
You're going to need goggles because you get this abrasive dust in your eyes. It's really going to be abrasive in your eyes. You don't want to be inhaling a whole bunch of it, so you're going to need a dust mask, a decent one, a decent fitting one. And you're going to need a pair of coveralls.
The paper ones that you can throw away.
Yeah, you can reuse them a number of times, but you want to be able to take those paper coveralls off before you go into your home and not carry all the ash inside with you.
And you're going to be wanting to rake that ash away from your house in case it starts raining, because then you've got all sorts of problems with your foundations and stuff. So these are things to think about in your preparations.
Now, one of the things that occurred with Kamchatka was there was a very large earthquake foreshock in the 7.4 range. And we've been saying that there's a strong potential with the Great Cascadia that there will be foreshocks in the 8 range. Yeah. And that's very possible. And so people may become complacent after that foreshock and say, oh, we're safe now. It wasn't as bad as they said. And then a week later, 2 days later, 4 days later, here comes a much, much bigger earthquake. The Great Cascadia now is hitting.
Yeah.
And so that's something you need to be aware of, because that's a very, very real potential. And that 8 could take out all the communications as well in your area.
And your emergency services. And there's a particular area in Washington State where they say that the emergency plans are not sufficient, and it turns into more of a body recovery than rescue. After a large portion of the population is gone. So these are things to think about. Your pet food. You better have pet food and your animal food in steel cans.
So
that keeps them safe from stuff. And you have to have enough groceries to be able to go for a year without being able to plant a garden.
Yeah, these are big time preps that you need.
And you have
for what's coming.
Yeah, and you have to keep going at it. You have to move faster. It's not an adrenaline thing, but you got to move faster. You have to make that decision to not go out for a beer or two with the friends, or go to a movie, or go on vacation. Put that money back into your preps. Pay down your bills, but definitely get your home and your family ready.
And you should understand, as far as the timeline of the prophecies of the Bible, it was talking after the tribulation of those days. That's not great tribulation.
Yeah.
That's not great tribulation. We're already in an early stage of tribulation now, with so many things being put upon us.
And seals open, and the horsemen.
And different things are already happening. This is the prelude, man-made chaos that comes before great tribulation,
which God allows. God doesn't cause this.
So let's take a look at Kamchatka now, and now you're going to be able to put into context what we've been saying about the Great Cascadia for 6 years, and adjust your mental preparedness, and then your physical preparation.
I want to add one more thing. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
But, 5 years ago, when we were talking about having routes to get out of the area, to get out of the state of California or over to Idaho and all, and different routes to look at, that was before the Cascades, more of the volcanoes were really reactivating.
Yeah. More volcanic reactivation has occurred through the Cascade Range.
Yeah. So that's changed a lot. So those of you who've been with us, for the last 5-6 years, that's changed quite a bit. This is why we're really looking at
We had a viewer
stay in
that's
place.
we had a viewer that's on the west side of the Sierra Nevadas, and close, and their fields are cracking, and they're having, they gave us a personal report of their having cracks in their fields, and cracks of their baseboards, paint separating, all kinds of ground disturbance effects showing on their property and in their home. What we've been talking about, having reactivation all through the Sierra Nevadas, is being shown on people's property now. So it's very significant.
And that's why the Cascadia zone, Terry, has extended down into the Sierra Nevadas.
Yeah. And all the way down to LA. If we're going to show the seismograms for Walnut, La Puente, and a couple of other areas, showing that major reactivation is occurring all the way down into LA, and we can show you why as well. So that's part of the program, giving you the science that supports all of this.
Science meets prophecy.
Yeah. And so here we have the Kamchatka activity, and it continues. This is from August 6th, looking from Petropavlovsk. So that's the closest USGS heliplot site. And the foreshock that I was talking about, they called a magnitude 7.4 on the 20th, and we reported on that. And then after the earthquake, they called an 8.8, but we called a 9.3 to 9.5. We've seen massive levels of aftershocks. And that was on the 29th. There was a 9-day lag between that magnitude 7.4 and the 9.3 to 9.5 on the 29th. So that's a big deal, that lag time to occur. But we also impressed upon you that this was a manufactured event as well. So that has to be taken into consideration. And we're not changed our assessment on that. That's actually had more greater substantiation since we first reported.
Yeah.
So still active on the 5th. Here we are on the 5th with aftershocks from Petropavlovsk. So that's a lot of activity still. And there's activity still going on now. This is the cluster of earthquakes, or a swarm, rather, of earthquakes. And if we exclude the outliers, north and south, so we exclude these and we exclude these, this area is about 350 miles. Now, this set off 7 volcanoes. One was reactivating, not erupting, but the magnitudes, the volumes, the spread, and the area of the aftershocks, this exceeds all previous recorded activity. This is just an immense amount.
And the volcanoes were north of there.
And the volcanoes, they were from this area here and north.
Yeah.
And we understand that Kamchatka moves 7 feet southeast. So the Eurasian continent in the Kamchatka area moves 7 feet to the southeast in the area of Kamchatka.
Over the Pacific Plate.
Yeah. So this is the process of subduction being shown to us, demonstrated for us. And the volcanoes that are involved are all stratovolcanoes built by the process of subduction. So of course, when you feed more subduction material underneath the volcanoes, they're going to react. Not only that, but the rapid movement jars the magma chambers as well. So it promotes the compression. The waves going through there are going to promote more activity as well. So a large subduction event will both squeeze the magma chambers from below and then feed new, more volatile oceanic crusts beneath them. And the oceanic crust is about 4 miles thick on average. The main swarm length is about 350 miles. And so how much material went under the volcanoes? Well, we can do the math. There's 4 miles times 7 feet times 350 miles. And if you do the math, that works out to 1.85 cubic miles of material,
That's a lot.
oceanic crust being subducted under the Kamchatka Peninsula volcanoes. Now, how long this eruptive event continues will provide really good data for comparison with the Great Cascadia eruptions that are tied to the earthquakes. Now, this image shows why the parade of volcanoes erupted or reactivated on the Kamchatka Peninsula. We're using the Cascades range, but it's the same subduction process. So here's the Juan de Fuca plate coming in underneath. It's not actually moving. Disregard the arrows. It's stationary. It's the continent that's moving, and that's proven by GPS measurement. So as it moves, it's riding over top. But as more material is underneath, what we see here is water coming out of the crust. And that water is under such pressure that it remains liquid. And it hyperactivates the magma. It makes it lighter and it rises into the volcano, drives the water at 4%. That's what you have in subduction magma, is about 4%. Gets into the volcanoes, and then it expands 1,700 times to steam, and that's why you get the massive ejections out of stratovolcanoes. So it's the steam driving up through. And there's reactivation processes that occur, and they've been already underway for 6 years.
Yep.
Yeah, there. Whoops.
No, up there.
Up there? Up there. Now, this is all such basic science in volcanology. Yet this continuing event is not being reported. This subduction event in Kamchatka is not being reported as volcanic reactivation due to subduction. It's as if those presenting the science cannot do the basic 2 + 2 math involved. Or is this a planned cover-up, that they don't want you to see the straight-up cause and effect at work? Now, what are the impacts on climate? All this steam and ash is blasting into the atmosphere, so far to a reported height of 7 kilometers. And that's below the stratosphere. But we have important questions that follow. How much volume is being ejected? How long will the eruptions continue at high volumes? Will other volcanoes join in? And if so, how many? Will the eruptions of steam and ash reach the stratosphere? And what's the impact if they do reach the stratosphere? You want to talk about that for a minute?
Right now, the stratosphere, if it goes up into the stratosphere, it circumnavigates the globe up into the northern hemisphere first, and it'll gradually make its way down towards the equator. Now, the stratosphere is only 10 kilometers from sea level up around the Arctic Circle. Down near Kamchatka, we're guessing around 12 kilometers.
Yeah, about that.
About that. We're guessing. So that means that you don't have to have that 60,000 foot blast like Hunga Tonga.
Because they're near the equator.
They're right. And so, that 60,000 foot blast sent everything around the world for 3 years. 3 years, affecting crops. So up here off of Kamchatka, that ash can be coming over to North America, Canada, U.S. quite easily. And are we seeing effects of it now? We don't know, but we certainly are having a cooler, rainier summer. August should be really, really hot, and it's not. So, and we're seeing smoky looking skies, and yet there's no smoke in our area from the smoke map. So, what is it? Is that ash from Kamchatka already, even at the elevations just under the stratosphere? We're not sure. It could be. Yeah. But it is affecting the way we are growing things, and that's what prompted us to go, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, we're looking at immediate installation of greenhousing to extend this summer, just to
Yeah,
make sure that we get as much as possible in. Because if we have continued ash eruptions coming out of Kamchatka, if these extend for 6 months, we could have a cool summer already upcoming the next one
yeah,
coming up.
and the wind patterns. Go to Windy or Vintu Sky, wherever your favorite global map is, and look at your wind patterns and where ash can come in from. And we're right in the. It comes for us. It comes over and down and across. Sorry about that. Right across at us in Canada with ash.
Yeah.
So are we seeing that because there's gray in the skies and it's not cloud? Maybe, could be.
If you can set up a temporary greenhouse and extend your growing season, we don't know that this is going to be a big issue next year, but it could be. And if so, if you extend your growing season, you're going to have that much more produce available for next year when it's a shortage. Much like days of Joseph, when they had the famine in Egypt, biblical famine in Egypt, and they were able to put away all kinds of food, store food away for 7 years before the 7 year famine came. So the same idea applies here. We can learn from the Bible or we can learn from history. If you see potentials coming ahead, you prepare ahead of time. Now, the very large Kamchatka earthquake, like I say, a great comparable for the much larger Cascadia megaquake. So the Kamchatka eruptions prove the case that large subduction earthquakes will cause many eruptions in the area involved. And that's what we've been warning of for 6 years. The classic Cascadia subduction zone, despite what many channels are saying, something around 620 miles in length, it's at least 800 miles in length. That's over double the length of the main area of the aftershocks of Kamchatka. So this is looking at the classic area. They talk about mid-Vancouver Island, but the Explorer Plate actually extends north towards the Queen Charlottes, and it can be involved as well. And there's a transition zone of faults that BC geologists have found, where sometimes you get subduction in the Queen Charlottes up to the north, and sometimes you get slip strike. So it's when the direction of pressure changes, faults can react in different ways. So there's the Juan de Fuca plate coming right down to the Mendocino Fault ridge here. Okay. And the movement is the continent shifting over the Pacific, as proven by GPS stations. So the earthquake energy of the Great Cascadia has now been stored for 325 years. It is slowly and imperceptibly stored away as Western continental uplift. When it is released, the western continental edge rapidly lowers and extends out over the Pacific plate, overriding and causing subduction of the mainly stationary Pacific plate. The seafloor may also, being under stress, may also uplift in some areas. The amount of shoreline continental extension is expected to be about 25 feet, according to most in science. But this has only been tracked for about 35 years through GPS station placement. So all of these estimates of how far the crust is going to extend, how much stored energy they have there, is based on stress accumulation through the highest stress level for about 1/10 of the time period involved. They could have easily miscalculated, much like an election year political poll missing the mark. We must also consider that the agencies historically lean to the conservative side of estimates. With this in mind, the western edge of the Cascadia could easily extend 35 feet in the next Great Cascadia earthquake. And that's 5 times as much as Kamchatka for over 2 times the distance, and that's a multiple of over 10 times more energy involved. That means that if the classic Cascadia 800-mile megaquake occurs, we could see greater than 10 times the volcanic reactivation of the Kamchatka Peninsula. That's 10 times the material ejected.
This Kamchatka thing just changes the whole game.
Yeah. And I've got to repeat that because this is so important. This means that if the classic Cascadia megaquake occurs, we could see greater than 10 times the volcanic reactivation of Kamchatka. That would be 10 times the material ejected. But will it be the classic Cascadia earthquake that occurs? And this is where it's so important. Based on seismology, the Cascadia could be much larger this time. And based on past scientific research of ocean core drilling, there are times when the Cascadia is much larger. So we've been reporting volcanic, Chris Goldfinger's information is very, very pertinent in this, and other scientists with him. We have been reporting volcanic reactivation through the Sierra Nevadas, the Walnut Puente area, and the San Jacinto Mountains, and at Salton Sea, along with nearer coastal volcanic reactivation in California. And this includes shoreline tremors that extend inland to the western edge of the reactivating mountains. This stops just south of where the Murray Fracture Zone meets the continent, just south of LA. Now, that's going to raise some eyebrows. What's this Murray Fracture Zone? Well, here it is. So we've got a number of strips of great big fractures through the Pacific Plate. Okay, the Pacific Plate is not a big solid segment. It's a whole bunch of segments together. It's not a big solid one-piece mass. We have the Mendocino Fracture Zone that comes in here to California. The Murray Fracture Zone comes in, that's about 500 miles to the south, comes in to LA.
And don't forget the Pioneer under the Mendocino and a few,
Yeah.
10.
So the Mendocino Fracture Zone includes the Pioneer Ridge that runs out here as well. So it's about 100 miles down.
Yeah.
The Molokai Fracture Zone is about another 500 miles to the south, and that becomes the Shirley Fracture Zone for those that want to look right in this area, just as we get to the eastern edge. The Clarion Fracture Zone, I mean, this goes all the way across here. Comes in right about at Guadalajara, and then we have the Clipperton Fracture Zone down below. But you can see that they're long strips, and these fault zones, these fracture zones, occur because of movement at different rates. This area of plate up here moves at a different rate than this plate area here. And this plate area here moves at a different rate than this plate area here. And what proves it is the existence of these fracture zones. And that's why they are there, because of movement at different speeds. The same as slip strike faults on land, except these are oceanic. So the Murray Fracture Zone meets the continent just south of LA, and the activity slows south of Huntington Beach and Murrieta, which is inland. The areas with tremors and volcanic reactivation seem predictive of inclusion in the next Great Cascadia. We're seeing subduction, slow slip of subduction, like a creeping effect of subduction, where the friction isn't holding anymore along the continental margin with the oceanic plates. So if we were to include the section of California south of the Mendocino to southern LA, we're adding about 530 miles to the Great Cascadia.
And does any of that trigger the San Andreas? Because people in California are going to wonder.
Well, the San Andreas could become under such stress that it releases ahead of the Great Cascadia. And that movement could actually be a trigger for the Cascadia. It could be a foreshock event.
As opposed to a release of pressure delaying it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the amount of pressure that the San Andreas releases is in the 9.5 range, 7.5 range. That's the historic truth of what the San Andreas releases as compared to the very low end estimates for the Great Cascadia is in the 9, but it easily gets up into the high 9s, which is so many multiples higher that the San Andreas would not release enough energy to have a significant effect on whether the Great Cascadia includes California. So you could have
SoCal.
The San Andreas release on any of its major 3 segments and still have the Great Cascadia include all of California.
Because as Terry's
down
been
to LA.
talking about, the Great Cascadia has now moved down into the Sierra Nevadas as well. It no longer stops at Mount Lassen.
Yeah, because we're seeing the reactivation through the Sierra Nevadas and actually into the northern San Jacintos. They're talking about, or witnesses have seen steam coming out of the San Gabriel Mountains, and we've got volcanic reactivation east of LA. And we're going to show you that later. Now, if we go to the south, a quick look at the activity in Mexico. The Clarion fracture zone lines up with a string of volcanoes and volcanic fields that cross south central Mexico, and this is called the Sierra Transvolcanica. So that's it here. This is the Clarion fracture zone coming across, and this is the Sierra Transvolcanica, and that actually transects the southern end of Mexico. Central Mexico, south central Mexico.
Okay, and where's Mexico City in all of this? You
Mexico
said it lines
City
up with
is
one of those.
Yeah.
Is it the Shirley or the
No, it's
Clarion?
with the Clarion fracture zone. So this area through here includes Pico de Tancetero, the one that we've talked about in recent programs as reactivating. Nevado de Tulucan, Popocate Patal, Volcan Volcan La Malinche, and many others and volcanic fields. And Mexico City is also in this zone. So the Clarion fracture zone comes across here, and this is just studded with volcanoes and volcanic fields, and Mexico City is right about here.
And we're still on the Eastern Ring of Fire.
Yeah. Now, north of the Clarion fracture zone, and this shows the Shirley fracture zone, which is the extension of the Molokai Ridge fracture zone. This section of 2 plates up to the Murray fracture zone seems to be locked up. The activity is down here. We're getting some earthquakes up through the Gulf of California, and that's got some major faults through it as well. There's a ribbon of faults going up through there, hooking up to Salton Sea. So that's like the southern end of the San Andreas. And it's the same fault following all the way down through here. So this is shifting rather than the coastal side shifting. We're not seeing volcanic activity along the coast here. We're seeing it down at the bottom. So that's telling us that this section is locked up right in here. And a locked up section builds more stress. So where were we? So this shows us this Sierra Transvolcanica, that's a mountainous ridge of volcanoes and volcanic fields, shows us how transverse oceanic faults can act as magma windows. Okay, so that lava comes up, or magma comes up from below. Once it hits the surface, it's lava. And so lava can come up through these transverse faults and activate continental volcanic zones. And this may explain the extensive volcanic zone east of the Mendocino Ridge, which has become very active. And we're talking east of Mount Shasta and east of Mount Lassen. There's a huge volcanic area right in there.
I know we've talked about that a lot, going into Nevada, and now there's stuff going on at McDermott, Oregon.
Yeah. This may also, and McDermott's a big old supervolcano, so that's a big deal. This may also explain all the activity we are seeing east of the Murray fracture zone, east of LA, in the Walnut La Puente area, and the reports of steam venting from the San Gabriel Mountains. So extension of that fracture as it subducts goes right under the continent, and it allows magma to come up through the oceanic plate and impact the continent and open up areas that are weak, and those become volcanic zones. It looks like the oceanic plate segments and the continent inland are absorbing most of the energy of continental drift between the Murray fracture zone and the Clarion fracture zone, with the continental margin locked up. So that means we have more stored energy in that area. A quiet area is not a good area. It's just building more stress. We have clear evidence of subduction to the north of the Murray fracture zone, while the Clarion fracture zone has promoted Tansatero, that Tansatero reactivates. So there is strong odds of shifting along that fault under Mexico, and that's why the volcano would be activating.
And that's why you also said if we watch for the behavior of Tansatero, that's going to tell us a lot about Rainier.
Yeah.
And now maybe with the way Rainier's behaving, it's going to tell us about Tansatero as well.
But it seems that Tansatero is well ahead of Mount Rainier in its reactivation, with much, much bigger earthquakes. Lots of 3.5s. We're not seeing mid-range 3s very much at Mount Rainier, but we're seeing a lot of 0-point earthquakes and 1s, but they're 100 times bigger earthquakes at Tansatero. So the lock zone is 1,250 miles long. Would it be vibrated loose, or stress shift? Would the stress that shifts with the Great Cascadia cause it to release and become a further extension of the already much larger Great Cascadia? And it seems probable that that's what would happen. So we may include an extra 1,250 miles to the south, but it may not move as well. We don't know. We can only give you probabilities and explain the science to you. To the north, we have clear evidence of volcanic reactivation, all the way from Mount Baker all the way to Mount Spur and Iliamna in Alaska, all of BC. Additionally, the Queen Charlotte Islands have been found by credible geologists to be a transition zone fault zone, and the continental margin there reacts to the direction of force applied, sometimes subducting, sometimes moving in slip strike. Other faults can do the same, react differently due to a change in the direction of force that's applied. The additional distance north of the classic Cascadia subduction zone that is moving in subduction is a little over 1,030 miles. So let's do the math. 800 miles plus those zones moving already in subduction. We add the 1,030 miles to the northern portion. That gets us to 1,830 miles. And now we add the southern portion of 530 miles. That gets us to 2,360 miles, which is what we expect the next Great Cascadia to shift in. That it's going to be that long instead of 800 miles. Do we add the locked up portion of 1,250 miles? It really doesn't matter. The length has already increased by about 3 times. It's a massive, taken already the largest earthquake in the world and made it 3 times larger. And using sound science, we can point to a very high probability that the upcoming Great Cascadia megaquake will be about 3 times longer than the classic Cascadia.
And I'm just going to remind everybody once again, this is evidence from Kamchatka and what's going on there that can happen here, but at a larger, greater rate, larger area to be included.
So if 6, of the 7 volcanoes in Kamchatka, 1 is just a reactivation with hot spots. It's not actually erupting. So if 6 volcanoes erupt for each 350 miles of subduction, down the extended Cascadia, there would be 40 volcanoes erupting with 5 times the volume of Kamchatka.
So I think, sorry, I'm going to break in here. So a little experiment for yourself. Where did you say 500 what? Or 350 miles?
Yeah.
So if people took a little ruler or something like that at the correct mileage apart, go to Google Earth and put that mileage in your area and see what volcanoes are in your area within that 350 mile range that you can add to your worry load. It's great fun.
We talked about, so even as the classic Cascadia, if that of 800 miles, that would include 14 or 15 volcanoes erupting with 5 times the volume of Kamchatka. So even if it's just the classic Cascadia, you're still looking at 14 or 15 volcanoes erupting with very massive amounts and probably going stratospheric at that point because it's so much volume. If you move 25 to 35 feet of crust 4 miles thick under the volcanoes, that's a lot of fresh material to melt up, have meltwater come out of and eject as steam out of the volcanoes. We talked about the reactivation of Iliamna, but this is the first time we're actually showing it. So we have this, and these are all localized microquakes of magma rise. Okay, so you've got microquakes all the way through here. You can see them as small strikes. And this is absolutely due to reactivation. And there aren't any agencies talking about this, but this is early stage reactivation of Iliamna.
Are we seeing steams?
Yeah, these are steam-created earthquakes of magma rise, and then you get steam blowing off when it gets high enough, and you get little bursts, but it's capped. So you're not. So you see it as a very small strike because the cap hasn't blown out of it. This volcano has not cleared its throat, so to speak. Yeah. And looking at Walnut La Puente, these signals are very much now. These are chopped off. They trim the top and the bottom of these because they get too large for the seismogram. They want to see what's going on. So that gives them the unique shape that you see there. They're actually quite large signals compared to this. We just can't show you all of it because this is the representation they provide. But we've got underlying tremors. These lines are elevated. And then we've got the long pulsed magma signals. And that's what these are. And these match up with Bombay Beach and other areas with volcanic activity.
In Salton Sea area?
Salton Sea area, yeah. And these are the shoreline tremors at Playa del Rey. So that if we go due west, this is what we get, shoreline tremors. And this is on and off.
Is that over amplitude?
No, this is about normal.
Okay.
And looking at Petropavlovsk 12 days after the big one they had there, and we're still seeing, greatly diminished in size now. We're talking about probably that's probably a 4.3, 4.2. This might be a 3.9. So the magnitudes are dropping off. And so now, if we apply what we're learning through here of a great earthquake, certainly the Great Cascadia is a great earthquake, but if it's a much larger Cascadia this time around, involving 2,300 plus miles, and then we have 40 volcanoes going off, or even the 14 or 15 of the Great Cascadia in the classic size, that's enough to fulfill this prophecy. The sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood. You look at, in forest fires, you look up at the sun and it turns red. You look at the moon and it turns red or brown as well.
Yeah, and with Mount St. Helens, I remember the skies were gray and silver.
Yeah.
Midday, sun is darkened. You're not getting your bright sunlight for growing food.
So this is the tie-in between biblical prophecy and uh, and
Science.
science as we're seeing it today.
Science is confirming.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful thing to see the matchup between the two. God is our heavenly Father is the great scientist, and
Yeah.
Jesus our King. There's no scientists beyond them. There's nothing wrong with science if correctly applied, and they do the absolute perfect job of applying science. And so we're seeing it build up in real time to fulfill that prophecy. All right. Anything else, Esther?
Nope. I think that pretty well covers it.
Well, what you need to be aware of in this is the ashfall will carry quite a bit more concern for people that are living east of the Cascades Range and east of the coastal range in BC and in parts of Alaska. There's got to be a preparation for ash. You've got to look at your areas for lahars. Which direction are
Well, the winds. I mean,
the winds
I
going?
was in
Yeah,
San Francisco when Mount St. Helens went off. We actually felt that down there. And the ash, from what I was hearing from people up in Canada, is that even on the west side of the Cascades, the west side of Mount St. Helens, there was ash in the sky for several days.
yeah.
Now, lighter than what was on the east side, but it's still there and will still affect your home, your plants, your animals. It doesn't just magically disappear. And that's why we highly encourage you to go look at windy, Ventus sky in the other area and look at your seasonal patterns of wind, which direction they blow, and put that in relation to the volcanoes in your area.
Yeah. And so you can prepare for ash.
Mm-hmm.
You can prepare for, you can make sure you're out of the flow paths of lahars that would come off of Rainier and Baker and Jefferson and, wherever else it might be that would impact where you live. You can make preparations for all of these things ahead of time, but once this goes off, you'll have the foreshock warnings I expect in the eights. But once the Great Cascadia goes off, then you're on your own.
Okay.
You're on your own for 3 months and more.
Are you talking foreshocks out in the ocean like Kamchatka? Those eights and stuff like axial seamount and other areas out in the ocean as opposed to on land?
I expect they'd be out in the ocean. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You could see the San Andreas go off with the 7.5. And people might say, "Oh, that's the end of the earthquakes. We had our big one," but the Great Cascadia is still coming, and that's such a small amount of energy. It's less than 1/100th of what the Great Cascadia is going to be.
Yeah.
Just so you understand.
But it's don't worry. You've got it in hand. You've got people watching over you. You've got God and angels watching over you. Then you just prepare and you keep going.
And you pray and let yourself be led, because we can't tell you what to do.
No.
And it's not our job. It's our job to warn you of what's coming, and then you rely on Holy Spirit through prayer to give you direction to lead you.
And you just have to learn to listen for that quiet voice.
Yeah. It won't be a voice yelling in your ear. It's a small, quiet voice, and that's what it's described as.
Yeah. So, just pay attention. Keep prepping. If you've stopped because you don't have money, well, stop going to the movies.
No
Stop
more
eating
vacations.
out. Don't, it's just that time in the age of man where, you got to put your nose to the grindstone and make the little things that you enjoy free.
And we don't know just when this is going to occur, but it's ramping up. And it's been ramping up for 6 years. And there may actually be a retaliation for what happened in Kamchatka with the largest earthquake being created there.
Mm-hmm.
And that could
Careful.
set something off as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Anyway, we're not going to ramble anymore.
Yep.
We're going to let you go, do your thing. Hopefully you come back and watch through everything again so you have it in your mind. And please like, subscribe, share with others.
Yeah.
Share with your family and friends that are up and down these areas so that they can, take the information and go with it, or they can go, yeah, right, whatever. You've done your duty.
This program provides evidence that has never been presented before because we didn't ever have the Kamchatka Peninsula demonstration for us.
Yeah.
To show everybody what actually happens in a subduction earthquake.
Yeah.
Because regardless of what set it off, it's still a subduction earthquake. The continent still moved 7 feet. So
that was just kind of like hey, this is what the 1700s sort of kind of looked like.
Yeah. This is a small version.
Yeah.
7 feet as opposed to 25 to 35 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
And less than half the length, for sure. So if you're leaving, go with God's blessings, and we're going to finish up with a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Heavenly Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit, this program continues to be dedicated to your service, and we ask for your continued protection. Jesus, we thank you for your leadership in all of these things, the different areas and understandings we're drawn to, and we thank you, Holy Spirit, that you share those understandings with us. This is a lot to sort out, and there's a lot of scientists that are providing misinformation based on old data, and it's a blessing to be able to correct that and establish your truth, the real science that you provide. And so we ask for your continued blessings. We know there's a challenge for your children all over the world, and there's many who don't have eyes to see and ears to hear. So we pray that eyes are opened and ears are opened so they can hear the truth, and that many are led to salvation. We ask in your name, Jesus, and give you praise and glory. Amen.
Amen.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Feed My Sheep, Earthquake Reports, and more. Terry.
Esther.
And Esther.
And
Bye.
the egg.
And the egg. Oh, yeah.
The
Bye for
chickens were squawking.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye.